Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being a patron and supporting me. Today, we're going to talk about False Positive because I just watched it and I have so many thoughts, but we're going to do spoilers because I'm going to do a main channel review of this. I haven't even scripted it, haven't got into it. This is my actual reaction to the film. I'm going to give you my uncensored reaction, and then I'm going to give a, spoiler-free review. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm working on that tomorrow. But I saw the film, I got a screener, an early screener, and one of the things they asked is for early reviews, not even early reviews, but like reviews on time, for us not to give spoilers out of courtesy of getting it early. It was just something they requested, and obviously I want to like play into whatever they want if I want to continue getting screeners from the same companies, which is A24 and Hulu. So I thought, yeah, this is the place where I'm going to put my spoilers. I just want to add as well that it is probably going to do you a service to watch the film first, because these spoilers are my pouring out thoughts. So not only I don't want you to spoil it for yourself, but also it's not going to be necessarily me stepping through what happens in the film, but more so my reaction to it and why I think it worked / didn't work. Let's get to it. Oh my god. So by the time you've seen this, my spoiler-free version will be out. So we're going to leave all of that information on that review, and we're just going to get straight into spoilers here. My word, am I completely shocked. I'm so interested to see how I'm going to put this in to a spoiler-free review, but I'll just still give you a rundown of what the film is about. This horror mystery thriller is directed by John Lee. John Lee directed things like Wondershausen, if you ever were a fan of that show. I was. I actually had a cat named after one of the characters, and Xavier Renegade Angel, which is like my favorite strange ass animation that exists, but this is very different to any of that. This is about a couple who aren't going through IVF or IUI, but some other strange method that this, I don't know the terms for it, the specialist has for having them conceive a baby. So this couple that have been together for a long time go to this specialist women's center called the Hindle Women's Center and are able to finally conceive. But after falling pregnant, the woman, Lucy, knows there is something wrong. We're just gonna get straight into it, as I keep alluding to. This film was bizarre, but also it was quite ordinary. It's like split down the middle. The unfortunate thing is this has Rosemary's Baby vibes, but it is Rosemary's Baby in millennial speak. There's a lot of sarcasm, there's a lot of making jokes about, the way my generation is. Lots of like, oh, I just take stylist photos of food, all that kind of stuff. And it's obviously upgrading the technology for what would be a Rosemary's time situation to now, instead of getting the necklace that she gets in Rosemary's Baby, she gets like a Cartier bracelet. So it definitely is of now times, and especially with the IVF. I do want to touch on this just really quickly because I read about this recently that I thought was really interesting. It seems like IVF is more common nowadays, and that's only because my generation, millennials, are getting pregnant later. It's not actually to do with, women being more... Sorry, I really don't want to talk about this too much because I don't want anyone to feel a certain way, but it's not about women being more like infertile or anything like that. It's got more to do with just people, doing different things with their careers and, yeah, just getting pregnant later in life, as our parents got pregnant a lot earlier. So I think that's a really interesting kind of spin on it that they went with that angle. But in saying all of that, I feel like the pacing of the film was really annoying. It takes 40 minutes, and I looked at it, it's like 38 minutes before anything kind of spooky happens. Up until that point, everything is so obvious and very slow, and the pacing and transitions between the scenes are very clunky, and I just didn't feel like a good flow or a build of tension, unfortunately. But the worst thing about it is when you are, having such a slow build up, you're hoping that the reveal is going to be quite original, and I have to say this film gave everything away with just one sentence. I wrote down the quote so I had it because I knew exactly what was going to happen from this moment. And this has to be like 20 minutes in. It's when the doctor says jokingly to her and her partner, sometimes I wish I could clone myself. It's the only way I'd get the job done. It just seems so obvious what he was doing. And this is definitely a fear that people have spoken about before with IVF or any kind of, help that they get getting pregnant, that things could get swapped. So I felt like that was really obvious from the start. It was very obvious that the father was hiding something, and it just obviously plays out the same way as Rosemary's Baby. The friend was planted there, and I just kept feeling kind of not misled. I felt like I was led down the right path, but I guess there were so many interesting aspects, like the Peter Pan symbolism, her like hallucinating, her and her job, the weird ass kind of Stepford Wives aspect the whole clinic has to it with these robotic kind of nurses, and the weird ass kind of Candy Striper Stepford Wife feeling the clinic and the nurses had to the film. There was just so many different like interesting aspects, and it was kind of annoying that it took the really obvious route, especially when the whole like dream sequence happened, which I was really confused at the time. I actually rewound. All of a sudden she's stalking her husband and chasing him down, and then she's in the closet in the hotel, and that whole aspect was very strange. Very, very strange. So I was wondering what was going on with that. And then obviously when you see them kiss, you see the doctor and her husband kiss, like that was that threw me for a loop. And I actually thought it was a really interesting aspect, and maybe it was trying to lead you down the path of it being like Rosemary's Baby and then changing at last minute, but unfortunately, it was just a dream sequence. But obviously, it was a metaphor for their relationship and for them benefiting off each other. But that's kind of like the sad part, is that the film was so slow, then it got like pretty intense, and then it ended with a bang. But really, when you look at it on paper, it's a story that is so ordinary, and it was so obvious from the start. We're gonna get into the end. Let's talk about the ending, because oh my God, that was like major shock factor, and actually really unsettling and disturbing, really disturbing. The whole film has a lot of really confronting imagery, even when they talk about pregnancy and women and, throughout history, and they have like all of those illustrations. I mean, it was confronting to see pictures of like a woman's vagina, or I shouldn't even say that, I should say vulva, like openly on camera. Because usually you don't see that kind of stuff. If you see a penis, that's yeah, okay. Boobs are like always, penis sometimes, vagina, vulva, never. But just the whole end situation, yeah, I feel actually quite uncomfortable about it. I don't think that there's necessarily... It's a really hard subject for a lot of people to talk about. A lot of people deal with... complications and pregnancies and stuff. So when I see things like that, it actually makes me really sad, because I worry about how many people could watch that and be affected by it. But hopefully they wouldn't watch a film like this anyway. But it was very confronting and very A24, I guess. But I think that is like the one aspect that the film had that was original, is they actually dealt and pushed the envelope with something that really is rarely ever seen in film, which is fetuses. They really showed got a lot of fetal time. And I just thought that was really interesting, because it's something that usually films touch on but don't show in imagery, and especially in strong imagery. So that really threw me for a loop. I've written down a lot of notes, as I do for my reviews, but one of my last notes is so hard to say whether it's original or not, because it's half original and half of the most fucked up aspects ever that no film ever wants to touch. And yeah, I mean, obviously I wrote that, so of course I agree with it, but I was just kind of dumbfounded by that. The film I wanted to love. I loved the lead, I loved the idea, and halfway through I was like, you know what? Even if this is like a 6 out of 10 and it's just a satisfying thriller watch, I get it. But it felt so strange that they chucked in those really intense elements at the end even the babies flying out the window, which I thought was genius when I saw the open window, and I thought they were just going to infer it and then it was going to be the end. Obviously, I thought it was very tragic, but it was obviously linked back to Peter Pan. And then it just kind of made me feel angry for a moment, because then I thought, how cool was this whole idea if they actually framed it around Peter Pan, Wendy, the Lost Boys, and really leaned into that a little bit more than they did. I felt like they had all of these different elements, a cool new angle coming from like a millennial standpoint, and just an updated version. And I thought, okay, if they lent into those original aspects a little bit more, it would have paid off. But because I felt like it was all kind of jammed in the end, and then the rest was so predictable, and it was trying to like lead you off course with like, you know, the kiss between her husband and the doctor, it just felt a really messy and scrambled. And at times I'm like, am I meant to be feeling scrambled because it is baby brain? And I couldn't figure it out. I really wanted to like this film, but unfortunately, maybe it gets like a 5 out of 10 for me. It was enjoyable to kind of try and figure out what was going on, and it has one of those big A24 ends, like it's very like Saint Maud in a way, but is shocking enough to save this film? I don't think so. I think it's quite messy, and I think that's probably why A24 sold it off to Hulu. It's always interesting when I watch these kinds of films because I have no idea, I have no reference online at all now to see what other people think about it. So it's always interesting trying to digest it myself and think through it, write a review, and then finally see if it's like hit or miss with other people. But right now for me, I think the issue is a lot of people get into horror movies and really feel connected to characters and situations and feel like it's therapeutic in a way when they're facing their fears, you know, dealing with something that they can't say. The film says it for them. But I feel like this film, I would never tell anyone who's gone through, and well, not like, obviously no one goes through this movie, but anyone who's gone through any complications with any that, or even had a kid, I probably wouldn't recommend, you know, new mothers to watch this. It's not going to work for its target audience and speak for them because it's just too intense, and the imagery is just disturbing, and it's just, yeah, you know what I mean. I think that if anything, this kind of speaks to fears with women, you know, losing themselves in pregnancy and all that kind of stuff with her being in the workplace. But, you know, the end is just going to be shocking for everyone. And I just can't see who this is meant to be therapeutic for, because if anything, it's just going to disturb people. Anyway, that is my spoiler-free thoughts. Thank you so much for letting me talk through them with you. I can't wait to hear what everyone else thinks about this film. And I will know by the time this goes up, so it should be interesting to look back at this time capsule when I'm editing it next week. But leave your comments down below. You've probably seen it by now as well, since it was out on the weekend. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. And who do you think the target audience for this film was? I'm gonna put a trigger warning on this because I feel uncomfortable just talking about it. Like, I feel like I'm doing a bad thing. I can talk about so many different types of, you know, triggers and feel like at least, you know, I can give warnings and that's fine. But this kind of stuff is like super sensitive topics. And I know other stuff is too, but I just don't know whether it should have crossed some of those lines. And I'm very like, I watched a Serbian film, but I felt like this film did cross some lines in a very weird way that I wasn't sure on its intent or its demographic. Anyway, that's enough blabbing from me. I can't wait to hear you blab it down below. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for supporting me on my Patreon, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.